Hi. Before going to video, please subscribe to my channel for more interesting stuff.
Story from r/paranormal. Posted by you/Happy Sunflower Day. House I've lived in for about 20 years is haunted. Sharing my experience for the first time. I've had some pretty weird experiences in the house I've grown up in. I still live in the same house currently. I moved into this house probably around 2002-2003. Nothing crazy happened in the first couple of years. It was pretty peaceful. However, the longer we stayed, little things started to happen. I was around 12-13 years old. I was starting to get really into the paranormal stuff. I would watch TV shows, movies, I'd read books, forums, etc., anything to really meet my interest in all of this stuff. I would wonder if that's what triggered things to start happening. Anyways, this story experience is one that really stood out. One day me, 13, my sister, 16, and my brother, 5, were all in the living room one summer day. My mom and dad were at work, my sister was babysitting my brother and I. My sister was cleaning around and I was watching TV with my brother next to me. All of a sudden the TV goes mute by itself. We kind of sat there just assuming it was the TV glitching. Then we hear a scratching noise coming from the wall to our left. All of us look over to the wall and this big framed portrait my mom has hanging, about the size of a poster, is dangling from the top left corner, just swinging back and forth about 3 times. Then, the portrait swings back up and clipped itself back in place. I personally checked if the portrait had a loose nail. I tried to shake it but it was really sturdy, it wasn't budging. We called our mom and she brushed it off as maybe something behind the wall fell. Behind the wall was my own closet. We checked it out and nothing. My mom never really believed us when we'd tell her things would happen. Story from r/paranormal. Posted by you/Chibi Boom Kitty. The House of Evil. Long-time lurker, occasional commenter here. I apologize in advance for the mini novella. Let me preface this by saying that this wasn't actually my first paranormal experiences. Also, for clarity's sake, I'm an only child. I remember when I was somewhere between the ages of 8 and 10, there were 2 separate occasions where I was downstairs in my family's apartment, by myself, late at night to get a drink of water, when a table fan we had at the time turned itself on full blast for no reason, with no one who could have turned it on. Startled, I turned it off and went back upstairs, a little shaken but no worse for wear. And nothing else happened. Those were my very first obvious experiences. Looking back, I'd had a few other experiences, but just stuff like having a gut feeling dislike for certain people, who years later, when I was old enough to understand, I found out were pretty awful people, recurring dreams/nightmares, that kind of stuff. Then we moved into the house. It was late May. I was 10. I turned 11 in December. It was a nice house. Much bigger than our apartment, with property and a barn. Room enough for us and all our farm animals. It was an uneventful summer and fall. I went to school, church with my mom, normal stuff. I turned 11 in December. I also hit puberty a couple weeks later. I include this only because it's been noted time and again that the onset of puberty can exacerbate gifts as well as the prevalence of paranormal occurrences. At the beginning of January, my dad died very suddenly. I'm not gonna go into great detail, but basically he died from a massive blood clot that severed his brainstem. He collapsed and was rushed to the hospital on Saturday, and was pronounced dead on Sunday. The next year or so was fraught with grief, turmoil and depression. My mother drew away from me, sinking into her own depression. I struggled with school. All the things one would expect from such a sudden loss. I also started questioning religion. Up to that point I had been a normal happy Christian girl. Now I started to question how a God that is supposed to be so loving and caring could let such a monstrous thing happen. Eventually I turned to Satanism. But not true hedonistic, anarchistic Satanism. I practiced it like people see in movies. With sacrifices. Now, being a 12-year-old, animal-loving girl, I couldn't bring myself to kill. So I did the next best thing, in my adolescent thinking. I cut off chunks of my own hair and burnt them. I also started cutting myself and burning the blood. As an adult who now falls somewhere between the line of pagan and Wiccan, I realize with hindsight what a terribly stupid and powerful thing this was to do. But as a preteen, I just thought I was being cool. Not long after I started practicing my own brand of Satanism, stuff started to happen. At first it was little stuff, like occasionally hearing whispering voices outside my windows at night. This eventually evolved into not being able to be outside at night without feeling like something was right behind/beside me about to grab me. I couldn't go out to the barn after dark without having to run at full sprint, slam my back against the side while I opened the small door, and reach inside blindly to turn the lights on. I just knew that if I didn't have my back against something, I'd be grabbed. I don't know how I knew, but I did. I also couldn't shower after dark without feeling like something was watching me from the window. This eventually got to the point where it felt like something was standing behind me in the shower. I'd hear whispering inside the house at night once in a while. I'd occasionally see multiple sets of tiny little red eyes watching me from the bushes across the lawn from my window. They would even blink. One night, I had my curtains open and I was burning candles on a bookshelf while I talked with my BF at the time on the phone. All the other lights were off in my room. I could clearly see the reflection of the row of candles in the window glass. I was lost in conversation with my BF when I glanced up at the window and saw, several inches above the row of candle reflections, two perfectly round balls of flame, like two eyes looking in from outside. Needless to say, I screamed and fled my room. My BF was pretty confused, even after I explained to him what I'd seen. And when I went back in my room to investigate, the flaming eyes were gone. Now, the house we lived in was old enough to have a very deep foundation, so to have been looking in my window at that height, whatever it was, had to have been about 7 feet tall. Somewhere in amongst all that was happening, I also started occasionally dreaming, even daydreaming, about a dead little blonde girl in the attic/crawl space. I climbed up there and no trace of anything but rat droppings could be found. One night I woke up in the middle of the night and there was all kinds of crazy glow in the dark scribbling all over the wall beside my bed. I wish I'd given myself a chance to see if I could read what it said, but I was so freaked out that I turned the lights on and slept the rest of the night with them on. By the next night the glow in the dark stuff was gone. During this period of 3 years, my mother's behavior had been changing some too. She was distant and very critical of me. She was slowly getting more and more mean towards our farm animals, even getting to the point of screaming at them for no reason and hitting them on a few occasions. Very out of character for her. I was having rather frequent bouts of sleep paralysis during this whole time, too. Not seeing things, just waking up paralyzed, and the only thing I could do to get rid of it was calm myself enough to doze back off and wake up properly. The last night we stayed there before moving was the scariest, though. I had laid down to go to sleep. The lights were off, I was getting comfy. I heard some footsteps in the hallway, but figured it was my mom getting up to get something to drink or something. I even called out softly, but got no answer and figured that she was just sleepy and didn't feel like answering. A little while later I heard my door, which I left open a bit, creak open some more, but figured it was one of the cats coming in to share my bed. I even heard some shuffling around on the floor like one of the cats. But no cat jumped on my bed. So I figured I'd roll over and turn the light on to see which kitty it was and invite them for some cuddles. I didn't even get as far as turning the light on. Standing in front of my closet doors, a mere 4 to 5 feet away from me, was a shadow person. I've done the research since then, and it was Hat Man. But I had no idea at the time what this thing was. All I knew was I was intensely afraid of it, more afraid than I'd ever been in my life. I flew off my bed and out of my room into my mom's room across the hall. I don't even think my feet touched the ground. Apparently, she had been fast asleep since she'd laid down, so there was no way the footsteps in the hall from earlier had even been her. We went into my room, turning lights on as we went, but there was nothing there anymore. But I did end up sleeping in her bed with her for the rest of the night. I found out from her that night that when we first moved into that house, she got such a negative feeling from it that before she would finish moving our stuff in, she got several ladies from her church to come and pray and bless each room. I also found out that she had had the feeling of being watched from her bedroom doorway at night for months before my dad had died. To this day, my mother and I believe that if we'd never moved there, he'd probably still be with us. I have never went back to that house. And I never plan to. I still live in the same general area, a few towns away, and whenever I have to drive anywhere near it I get a sinking, somewhat fearful feeling in my gut. And it's been almost 20 years since we moved away from there. We moved when I was 14, and I'm now 32. I've had a few more normal paranormal encounters since then, but nothing like the evil in that house. Occasionally I even have vivid, realistic nightmares about living there again or going back for any reason. The last time I had one of my nightmares about that house was as recently as 2 years ago. Nowadays, I've armed myself with protection spells, smudging and sealing, and I even wear obsidian plugs in my stretched ears. I know some of you won't believe me, and I don't blame you. I stay as skeptical as possible myself. But I know these things happen to me. I felt, heard, saw these things. They happened. Story from r/paranormal. Posted by u/the Scoob. Ghost interrupts a game of Halo at my friend's house. I've just made this Reddit account so I can post this. I won't include the name of my friend but simply refer to him as Z. I'm 18 right now, and this happened about 2 years ago, at Z's house. I had gone over to his house after school to hang out and spend the night. Our plans were to go out to the train tracks by his house late at night, but before that we planned a long Halo MCC binge. Z and I got to his house around 4 p.m., headed down the hall to his room and began our impossible conquest of beating Halo 2 on Legendary. And not long into our game is when it happened. Now to preface, the layout of his house was set up in a way where you'd walk in through the front door, living room on the right, dining room straight ahead, and hallway to the rooms up to the left. The hallway lead down to a sort of nerve point where all the doors, to the laundry room, Z's room, the restroom, his sister's room, and their parents' bedroom, were in a panopticon style set up in that exact order, from left to right. All this said, the laundry room is our focus. It was a 8 to 10 foot long room, with 2 doors. The first door separating the hallway nerve point to the laundry room, and the second separating the laundry room to the garage. The first door was left open, but the second door was closed. Knowing this, now we go back to Z and I getting wrecked by legendary jackal snipers. In the midst of our frustration, a quiet squeak caught both our ears. The TV volume wasn't up high, so we easily made the distinction that it was the squeak of a doorknob. We stopped in what felt like eternity, but was probably only a 6 seconds. The second door of the laundry room slowly squeaked open. To the point where it had to be almost completely open. And in an instant the fucking thing slammed completely shut with a very loud slam. Z and I looked at each other, equally confused and equally as terrified. We knew that door had been completely shut before and somebody would have had to turn the doorknob and purposefully open that door as slow as they did. Our confusion came with the fact that neither of us made a single sound, and the game was paused, while the door opened. So why would it slam shut with so much force? In a fight or flight response, eager to try and be a badass, I told Z, "Crap dude, do you have any weapons in here?" Thinking quickly and rashly, Z handed me a LARPing sword and he brandished a walking stick. The blade of my sword was plastic, but the hilt and grip were steel, so I flipped it upside down, gripping it by the blade, and decided it was an improvised hammer if anything. Now armed, we looked at each other and mentally prepared as best as we could to face what we thought was certainly impending doom beyond the adjacent laundry room. I led, with Z behind me, and rounded the right-hand corner directly into the laundry room and saw the second door closed, as we expected. We walked up to it slow and I put my hand on the doorknob. At this moment, despite the anxiety, adrenaline, and false confidence, I tried to summon the most man voice my 16-year-old self could. As I entered the garage, I swung the door open fast, took a quick glance of the room and shouted, "Whoever the fuck is in here, you better come out right fucking now." But no one emerged. No one answered. And for a brief moment I swore we must have been mistaking the door slam for something else. But in reality, we both knew someone, or something had slammed that fucking door. I took a step in and further scanned my surroundings. Z followed close behind and I told him to check if the door to the side yard was locked, while I searched the room for intruders, but I found nothing. Neither of us did. Z said the side yard door was locked and there was no way someone could have lifted up the garage door to get in and out because we would have heard them. We laughed nervously with each other and began to make up theories as to what natural occurrence caused the door to slam, or if it was even a door at all. But it was all just to try to make ourselves feel better, because we knew what happened, and we knew we couldn't explain it. I believe in the paranormal, and this is the most unexplainable thing I've ever had happen to me. I'm not friends with Z anymore and his family moved soon after, both of those things for unrelated reasons, but regardless I don't think I'll ever forget this event. I'm not sure what it could have been, but if anyone has any theories I'm definitely welcome to hearing them out. Story from r/paranormal. Posted by u/bootlegdk. One of my most memorable paranormal experiences. I wrote this on my phone, so excuse any bad grammar or spelling mistakes. I have been paranormal hunting for about 15 out of my almost 30 years of life, so I have had plenty of experiences with all different types of entities. This is just one of my several memorable experiences. If you'd like to hear more, I am more than willing to share the others. So this happened this past summer, the summer of 2019, on a road near where I live. This road is completely forested save for the bar at one end and hiking trails on the occasion. Towards the middle of the road there is a path that leads to a tree that looks like it is bleeding, and it is known as the bleeding tree, or the hanging tree, because in the past that tree was used for lynchings. Further down the road, there is another path that is roped off that leads to an old shed that burnt down in the 90s. I had been going to the road for a few months at this point and had a lot happen, including but not limited to, touching, voices through the spirit box, EVPs, black-eyed children, and even being chased by what I could only be assumed as a hellhound. This place has had a really dark past, KKK meetings and lynching, black magic rituals, and satanic rituals, so this place is a hot spot when it comes to the paranormal. Some KKK members were arrested for lynching people, and they claim to have lynched at least 10 people. The locals who live near the road have so many stories and even fear the road, saying it's a portal to hell and no good comes from the road. My group and I usually would go every Sunday night. This night started out like any other night on the road, the usual creepy feeling of being watched, shadows darting in between the trees, sounds of branches breaking like a person was walking in the forest. My group consisted of 7 people, names changed for privacy. There was me, my girlfriend, GF, Josh, Heather, Sam, and Sam's younger brother Samuel. We got to about a quarter of the way down the road when my GF and Sam decided they wanted to turn back. Sam was having a really bad feeling being an empath, and my girlfriend's ankle was killing her due to a past injury. So Josh, Samuel, Heather and I continued while they went back to the vehicles. We stopped at the entrance to the path to the hanging tree to do a spirit box session and caught a voice of a woman we have repeatedly caught before that is known as Juanita. We then saw a shadow dart between the path, which scared Heather, so we decided to keep moving forward down the road. We ended up stopping towards the end of the road to take a break, and to see if we could find anything at that specific area. That area is known to have an apparition appear that is wearing white robes, which the locals assume is a member of the KKK. After about 5 minutes of seeing nothing, we decided to start another spirit box session where we tried to communicate directly with this entity. We ended up getting the same male voice several times, but we weren't able to understand what it was saying. At this point, I started to get annoyed, and I did something very stupid, which I tell my investigators never to do. I started to antagonize the entity, telling it that it was an evil entity for what it did, that it had no right to take any lives, and that the entity was un-American and a coward. After calling it un-American, and while I saying the word coward, we got a deep growly voice through the spirit box screaming, "Fuck you, I'm going to kill you." The rest of the group heard this and I stopped speaking and started to get excited because it was the first clear voice we had gotten since Juanita all night. The moment I started to talk to the rest of the group, I felt 2 hands wrap around my neck and gripped me tightly. The grip got tighter every time I tried to speak or gasp for air. It got so tight at one point that I could feel it start to collapse my trachea. Almost as fast as it started, it disappeared, and I was left on the ground gasping for air. I suddenly felt like I got kicked in the side, which caused me to vomit. After that, we decided that the night was finished and we called Sam to come pick us up. When we got back to the cars, I had my girlfriend and the rest of the group check me, and I had bruise marks all over my neck as if someone was strangling me. After that we just said goodbye and went home. This is just one of the many tales I have of this road, and of my paranormal hunting in general. I would love to tell more of my experiences if anyone is interested. My girlfriend is also interested in telling her experiences too if anyone is interested.
Thanks for watching. Please do like, share, comment and subscribe for more videos.